Hello, hello.
Hey, you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly fine.
Nice.
Uh,
How's the video coming in?
Video's actually looking pretty fucking good. I kept trying to take it
Okay.
around with Skype after you showed me that video, and I was trying it early as well, but OBS Studio and Skype just have a very strong love-hate relationship with one another.
Yeah. That's no problem, no problem. I was a little bit worried that maybe the green screen behind was going to look a little bit weird since I don't typically show it much on stream, but I bet that's what's to be expected anyway, so.
No, I mean, it looks very classy over there on your side right now. Meanwhile, you can see some sleeping cats in the back of mine, so
Nice.
just ignore Sapphire and Nina.
That's quality. See, that's quality content. Pets are good stuff on Twitch, so
I know.
I'm envious.
Sapphire, the eldest cat, who is directly behind my shoulder, is a whole 19-year-old cat.
17.
Oh wow, 19. Okay.
Yeah, and she is a very vocal guest on my stream fairly often. She'll just always hop on my lap and be like, "Hold me," and she'll just be on my lap for like a good half an hour while I'm playing video games. And if I move too much, she'll just look at me like I'm being an asshole.
Oh, that's awesome.
But anyways, let's get to the purpose of tonight, which is going to be the interview, which, again, I want to thank you very much for being willing to take some time to let me ask you some of these questions. It's
Sure.
something I've been kind of interested in trying to start for like the past few months of interviewing either low-level streamers like myself or very quickly rising streamers, like people who are just hit affiliate or on the path to partnership in a really fast
Sure.
track, and just try to, I don't know, just try to help them expose a little bit. I don't know, it's just something to do for a pastime. Don't really know much else about it, just a little hobby I've been interested to start, but I'm finally going through with it.
It's awesome, and I'm happy to be here. So I appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, I think it's a great idea. Networking is probably the most important thing you can do if you're starting off on Twitch. So just being out there and connecting with other people is what it's all about. Especially
Exactly.
based on the way that Twitch is set up. You know, Twitch is kind of a weird setup, and we kind of rely on working with each other. So good for you, man. It's a great idea.
All right, so first question of the evening, which basically is going to be a lot of the same questions that I already sent you beforehand, so should be a little bit prepared. But what
Sure.
got you interested in Darkest Dungeon, and when was that?
God, that's a great question. So yeah, if you're unfamiliar with my stream, I'm at twitch.tv/ElementFive, exactly as it's spelled. And yeah, I started streaming just going into Darkest Dungeon blind. I just really didn't know what to play. And I felt like with some of my health limitations and challenges, that Darkest Dungeon was a game that would have a pace that made sense to me. Something I could just kind of move into and just play it blind. So that's what we did. I just moved into it about 4 months ago and said, let's just learn it. I've always loved the art style of it, the narration by Wayne June, etc. I'm a little bit more of an intellectual person in general, so I kind of like puzzle games, thinking through things. And then you've got just the crazy visceral feel that Darkest Dungeon is able to provide in a 2D atmosphere, which is just crazy. It's kind of unmatched. It's a bit of a masterpiece, that game, in certain ways. So about 4 months ago is when I just decided I actually want to play and be good at this really challenging game. So if I stream it, if I jump into streaming and I just try it in front of people, I'll be forced to learn it, which is basically exactly what's happened. Because in about a month's time, we beat it, and beat it on the easiest difficulty, and I immediately just got into playing modded stuff, checking out the modded community, doing that kind of stuff, and have made some really amazing relationships in that arena. And yeah, so 4 months ago is the official answer to your question, but I've always wanted to get good at it. It's been out, obviously, for a couple years now. So
With the 4 months being how long your stream has been up and running right now, it's a very noticeable atmosphere to your entire stream setup once you get in there. The whole mech robo, like almost want to say Pacific Rim sort of feel to your entire
Sure.
stream. What was the inspiration, or what like came to your mind to think that this is the direction you want to take your stream? This is one of the atmosphere. This is the feeling you want your viewers to have to associate with ElementFive.
That's a great question. This is, I think, one of the harder questions for me to answer. It's one I get fairly often, which is, what the hell does ElementFive mean? Where does it come from? etc. What's the robot stuff about? So bear with me on this, but I feel like so I have several health limitations. Actually, I got into Twitch a couple years ago, right as I started losing a lot of control of my nervous system. I lost vision in my eye a few years ago.
Oh,
so
damn.
so there's just a lot of things that happened. I also have I'm severe asthmatic. I've got all this weird stuff that kind of came together in one piece, and I found that games have always been an escape for me, but Twitch was one of those really potent escapes where I got to just meet people who cared about the same stuff, etc., etc. Throughout the process of rehabilitation and sort of getting better and regaining as much of my health as I could, Twitch was that outlet, and I just sort of found. I found through a lot of trauma therapy, actually, a piece of myself that I felt like was something that was there that I'd never really grasped onto. So that to me became, in a weird way, sort of the fifth element. It became this thing that was like an energy that it was like this unknown piece of me that if I just could throw reins on and let ride for a while, I could just move through a lot of the crap that I was dealing with in my life. So the Fifth Element is a movie that I love, and so that's a piece of it. But to me, it was kind of just more of the mythos of that fifth element, the missing piece, the sort of just something within yourself so that's kind of like a little bit of the branding that I use is release the machine, and that's kind of the idea. It's just let go your inhibitions and just lean into life is something I talk about a lot. Just leaning in and letting the net present itself. So that started with sort of a name of Fifth Element, kind of a mantra. A means to kind of move through a lot of the crap that I was. And then I met some really great artists. They gave me some great concepts, and I really gravitated towards the idea of robotics and the idea of something that is sort of mechanistic, something that you could cut through a lot of the emotionality and just go hard on. So I don't know if that's the greatest explanation behind how it all started, but I've loved it ever since. I really enjoy the sort of Pacific Rim aesthetic, the concept of mechs and things like that, and I love that kind of, to me, personified. It sort of solidified a sense of that essence, that energy of just moving through all the trauma and the difficult things that I had dealt with in my life, and just releasing the machine, just leaning into life and just trying it. And that's what getting on Twitch for me has been. That's what streaming has been all about. It's literally one of the most challenging and most terrifying things I've ever done. And it was also the vehicle for me to just escape a lot of the crap that I was dealing with and a lot of that trauma. So that's sort of where that came from. Thankfully, it's been received very well. And I've been lucky, I think, building a lot of the aesthetics and theming around my stream in that direction. And people seem to turn on to it, which is kind of fun.
That actually leads right into my next question. What has your overall reaction been to the ever-growing community that you have during your stream now, of not just other players interested in Darkest Dungeon, but the fact you have so many of the notable mods for the Pitch Black Dungeon on your stream all the time too? How has it been feeling to have this much of a pull already in the Darkest Dungeon community?
God, that is I mean, I kind of giggle when you say that, because again, I'm just a guy who learned to play this game 4 months ago, and was fortunate enough to have some of the modders who make this content just appreciate the way I was playing it, the way I explained the way that I was going through it, and then more and more of them just kind of showed up and I think really appreciated the way that I gave an exposition to their characters and their content. So it's not even just, I mean, primarily right now we're playing a lot of Pitch Black Dungeon, which is an overhaul mod for Darkest Dungeon. Very challenging, but very rewarding game. Not a lot of people relate to it because it's not the vanilla game that a lot of people are used to, but it's very similar in a lot of aspects. But I also have a lot of modders, a part of my community. One of my channel mods, for example, is Muscarine, who is one of the most loved and hated content creators in that realm because of his artistic style. But it's blown me away, to be honest with you. I mean, in four short months, I have built a really amazing community around not just the game, but the content creators for that game and all the stuff that they've got. I mean, Claire, who's a phenomenal mod that I have in my channel, she's working on Moonlit Dungeon, which is another overhaul version, which is going to be insane. Marvin Seo is a really popular modder who's created the Seo special group. So the Thrall, the Lami, if you're These are really, really, really highly rated, popular modded classes. He hangs out all the time. He's been giving me a lot of exclusive leaks of his content that's coming out. He's got a new dungeon coming out. So, I mean, I am just an idiot streamer who tried to play this game, right? I'm like, sometimes people come into my channel and they say, are you a modder? Did you create some of this stuff? And the answer is nope. I'm like, literally, I'm just a guy who thought he would try his hack at Twitch. And I happen to have gotten very, very, very fortunate having some of the people who create this content come in and actually like the way I play it. And it's an absolute honor to be able to play this stuff in front of those guys and have them go, yeah, we should change that. That should probably be tweaked. That needs to be a little bit less powerful. That there's nothing more rewarding or more valuable than that to me. It's a dream. It's a dream come true, honestly. And the truth is, and I have to say this real quick too, the fact that these guys create content which enriches or enhances or changes the game, and they do it for free. I mean, they put so much money and sweat and tears and effort, and they take so much hate from so many trolls in the community. And the fact that they put this content out for free is amazing. I'm eternally grateful for the fact that they create content and they keep this game rolling. I mean, again, Moonlit Dungeon coming out, then Marvin Sayo's dungeon coming out after the DLC. I'm in heaven. It's a pretty amazing ride so far.
You're gonna have a lot of material to work with for quite some time.
Yeah. It's we've got a busy schedule, and I'm doing everything I can right now to just stay on course with Pitch Black Dungeon and beat it, because there's just so much to do. So,
All right, now this is a question that I feel has only one true appropriate answer, but I'm curious to see what yours is. Favorite character in Darkest Dungeon and your favorite character in Pitch Black Dungeon?
That's a great question. So yeah, there's a duality there, which is that in the base game of Darkest Dungeon, characters play a specific way, and then they're rebalanced for Pitch Black Dungeon. So that's a great question, because it was something you love in the base game does not necessarily translate to Pitch Black Dungeon the same way. My immediate impulsive answer is usually the Grave Robber. I love the Grave Robber just because of her style, because she's a shuffle play. So shuffle in Darkest Dungeon is an interesting thing because all the characters are sort of based around their positioning in the group. You know, you've got 4 characters, and if you have them back here versus up front, that changes a lot of their ability and their utility. And what I respect about the Grave Robber, it's kind of the original base game shuffle character that allows her to kind of jump around and stuff like that. So I just love her style too. She's a strong female character. It's kind of cool that she's a Grave Robber who has a pickaxe and throws daggers and stuff and deals with poisons and stuff like that. Somebody asked me the other day, if I was any Darkest Dungeon character, which one would I be? Which one would I self-identify as? And the only answer is the Houndmaster, because I have 3 dogs and because I look a little bit like it. Like, I am a redhead, and I do have a beard. I don't necessarily club people, but I definitely protect animals, and I protect people, and there's some guard stuff there. There's some healing stuff there. So the closest answer to who I self-identify as would be the Houndmaster. Houndmaster is probably the only other answer in terms of favorite base game character, and the reason is because the utility is unbelievable. I didn't play this class for a long time, and then I realized this is probably the only Darkest Dungeon character you can play from basically any position and in any group composition. So that would be my vanilla answer. I think actually in Pitch Black Dungeon, the Jester is probably maybe my favorite next to the Houndmaster, and the reason is because in Pitch Black Dungeon you have corpse mechanics, and the Jester has an ability to clear corpses really easily. There's a lot of corpse clear abilities in Pitch Black Dungeon, which is great. They've been kind of injected into the characters. But the Jester is also this is kind of just it's just a factor of the way that so Silvio built Pitch Black Dungeon, and the community built that without many stress healers. And stress is a huge piece of Pitch Black Dungeon. You get stressed out really fast. The economy is very tight, so you can't pay for the de-stress. So the Jester kind of becomes your solo major stress healer in that.
This is true.
So if you get into that game, if you try Pitch Black Dungeon out and you get an early Jester, you ride it hard as fast as you can and through as many dungeons as you can. You save as much money as you can. And until I really learned that, I had a really hard time in PvD. So I think those are my safe answers. Probably Houndmaster,